call this regular meeting of the Goose Creek CISD Board of Trustees to order. It is 6:03. This is Barat Timms. Was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. I feel like it's super loud. Matt, you know that I used to be a high school principal. I'm really loud anyway. See, is this better, y'all? Okay. All right. Well, good evening, President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, and board members, now that I'm not shouting at you. Tonight's opening exercises will be presented by the board members. We will begin this opening ceremony with a prayer led by Helen Barat Timms. Will everyone please rise?
For all of your blessings. And we thank you for the successful graduations of all of our schools, for the staff members, teachers, support staff. We ask your continued blessings. Tonight, be with us and help us make wise decisions. All glory be to you, now and always, through your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance will be recited by President Tiffany Guy, and the Texas Pledge will also be held by Tiffany Guy. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, one visible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, at this time I'd like to ask Kay Cruz to come up, and she's going to present the Houston Area Association of Bilingual Education Teacher of the Year.
Good evening, President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. Tonight we would like to recognize our Teachers of the Year for HABE. We have been in partnership with Beacon Credit Union now for various years, and they would like to present the plaques with your assistance to our 3 HABE Teachers of the Year. They have been in partnerships supporting us with the Campus Teachers and District Teachers of the Year, and we really appreciate that support. So I would like to present Adelina Abshire that will be calling out the names for us.
No Visa gift cards?
It's a special gift for them.
Yeah.
Our Habit District ESL Secondary Teacher of the Year, Dr. Lindsay.
She is out of the country and was not able to join us tonight.
Our Habit District ESL Elementary Teacher of the Year, Kimberly Hoskins. She's not here. Oh, she is.
This one is. She is. Yes. Yeah, let's call her. She's trying to get you to do it. So that I can sign over here. Sorry.
Good evening. Our District Bilingual Elementary Teacher of the Year is Ms. Minerva Doñan.
How'd you say that last name?
Doñan. Has an A in it.
Oops. I'm sitting here waiting.
Photographer of the Year? Reverend Miss Tim, how you doing?
Thank y'all so much,
you
and
back.
congratulations. At this time, can I ask Kendall David to come up to recognize the HEB Excellence Award?
That was deep, baby. That was deep. I
Oh,
felt
it's actually Nora Martinez, our photographer. Tonight.
Good evening, President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, and the Board of Trustees. So tonight I will be presenting the HEB Excellence Award. Created in 2002, the HEB Excellence in Education Awards are designed to honor outstanding public school professionals and to thank them for their dedication and commitment. Through this program, HEB seeks to pay tribute to those educators, districts, early childhood facilities, and school boards that go the extra mile each and every day to serve our students and their communities, who inspire others to do the same. This year, HEB received more than 1,900 applications from educators all over Texas for their annual HEB Excellence in Education Awards. The Community Engagement Department is proud to announce Goose Creek CISD was selected as a semifinalist for the 2024 HEB Excellence in Education Award for a large district. Although we were not selected as a statewide winner, Goose Creek CISD has been recognized for its great commitment to excellence, student achievement, and community engagement. We would like to congratulate our superintendent, Dr. Randall O'Brien, and the Goose Creek CISD Board of Trustees for their great leadership and guidance. We would also like to thank all of our Goose Creek CISD students, staff, and parents that contribute to the district's vision, developing the whole child. So if we could have the board come and receive our award.
what are we doing?
So at this time, if I could ask Amanda Kennington to come up to present the Whole Child Wellness Awards.
Good evening, everyone. The School Health Advisory Council Parent Chair, Mr. David Reed, and I, and also Ms. Lori Rumfield, are honored to recognize the Campus School Health Advisory Committees for the key role that they play in advancing the health and the well-being of students, staff, and families. The Whole Child Wellness Award applications outline the criteria that was required for each award level from bronze up to platinum, based on 10 school health focus areas. 14 campus committees, led by a champion, successfully submitted evidence implementing strategies that were outlined in your district wellness plan. Key factors contributed to the success of the award recipients. They include things like the support and commitment by campus administration, a school health team that meets regularly, promotion and effective communication of their school health initiatives and resources, participation in regular assessments of implementing to monitor progress, and engagement with family and the community. Committees also earn bonus points for integrating school health strategies into the School Improvement Action Plan, providing evidence of professional growth, incorporating healthy fundraising options, and integrating sun safety practices into the school environment. The 2024 Whole Child Wellness Award is supported by Be Well Baytown. Be Well Baytown is an initiative of the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, sponsored by ExxonMobil. Each gold level campus will receive $350 to use towards campus coordinated school health initiatives, and each platinum level campus will receive $500. At this time, we ask the campus committee representatives to come forward when you hear your names to be recognized. There are 6 campuses who earn the gold level Whole Child Wellness Award. Ashbel Smith Elementary, Principal Aaron Clement and Champion Cynthia Martinez. Bowie Elementary, Principal Dr. Sims and Champion Tayan Ramos. She did. PE teacher champion. Carver Elementary, Principal Erica Smith and Champion Michelle Hayes. Crockett Elementary, Principal Talis Anuwan and Champion Amy Adams. De Zavala Elementary, Principal Leah Abbott and Champion Angela Rowland and team. Marcus Limbrick, yes. And Victoria Walker Elementary, Principal Paige Burt and Champion Brent Guidry. And 8 campuses earned our Platinum Level Whole Child Wellness Award. Alamo Elementary, Principal Aaron Clement and Champion Sensorai Ariaga. Benuelos Elementary, Principal Erica Box and co-champions John Hackett and Justin Capetillo. Clark Elementary, Principal Kimberly Scheidt and champion Joe McGrew. Harlem Elementary, Principal Betty Baca and champion Sherry Young. Highlands Elementary, Principal Blanca Capetillo and champion Joel Kuntz. Humphrey Elementary, Principal Renee Meyer and champion Jennifer Starr. San Jacinto Elementary, Principal Luis Munoz and champion Kristen Reyes. Co-champion Bruce Cortez. Travis Elementary, Principal Dr. Carrie Lanius and champion Angela Dunson and team. We're so very proud of you. Thank you for your support.
Okay, at this time, I will turn it over to you, Dr. O'Brien.
Okay, it looks like we have one person signed up for citizens participation. Citizens participation is the time that the board will hear public concerns or public comments from those who've properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board shall permit public comment regardless of whether the topic is an item on the agenda posted with the notice of the meeting. At all other board meetings, public comment shall be limited to open session items on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited in his or her presentation to a maximum of 3 minutes, and that he or she should respect the confidentiality concerns and refrain from attacking the personal character of any individual student, staff member, or board member in addressing concerns or comments. Pursuant to state law and board policy be illegal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item on the posted agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or decision on an item that is not posted for consideration at this meeting shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda of a future meeting. And we have Ms. Costick, and Ms. Barat-Timms will time you, and she'll give you a 1-minute warning. Thank you.
Good evening, President Guy, members of the board, and Dr. O'Brien. As expected, I would be addressing the anti-bullying committee update. So there used to be a day when I was Goose Creek's biggest cheerleader, and I find those days harder and harder. I advocated and fought even at a state level and gave Goose Creek kudos in the media for their efforts addressing bullying. And it's hard to feel as if I honestly have not been personally targeted myself, as I fell victim to the restructuring of the anti-bullying committee by being removed last year. Your survey data shows that the majority of both elementary school and junior high believe that staff is aware of bullying at their schools, and yet there were only 11 recognized victims. Reports may have an incline, but that is 0.004% of students that were victims. That should mean that at least 21, or if I don't count Lyle's, 20 schools had no victims at all, and that would be statistically impossible. You should be disappointed at what you're doing, and it's not working. Sometimes I wonder if preponderance of evidence is actually the model that is being used, because what does that mean? It is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It is more likely than not that bullying occurred. At the last anti-bullying committee meeting that I was allowed to attend, Lee High School presented independent data that was given, and it actually aligned with what the CDC said, but not with our numbers at all. So if you're going to ask the kids about bullying, and maybe you should also be asking them if they've been a victim, or give them a way to report it then and in that moment. There is much more detailed data that you could be receiving from the kids, because the data that you do receive does show that it's happening. But our reports that we have and the amount of victims that we have is actually less than when we started this. So I certainly hope that you are not proud of what you see in the data, and that you question it critically. because they aren't just numbers, they actually represent a student and a victim. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Costick. The next item is the approval of minutes of the May 20th meeting with the top 10 graduate reception and regular board meeting.
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Renteria. Any discussion?
There's one correction on line 9484. There's a typo that might be a little bit important.
Administration will make that correction.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or corrections that need to be made?
Do I need to amend my motion to approve as corrected? I'll make that amendment.
Okay.
If Mr. Renteria will amend his second.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that correction was the word compensation, so it was a little important.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Renteria to approve the minutes with the correction that Mr. Campisi pointed out. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed and abstentions? So I have 5 for, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Motion passes. And Dr. O'Brien, I think we're down to the superintendent's reports.
Yes, and I'm going to change the order, take the liberty to change the order just a little bit. We have a guest from out of town. I'm going to have the Population and Survey Analysis Group, PASA, with their demographic study present first. Welcome. We'll let you do your introductions.
Good evening, Dr. O'Brien, President Guy, board members. I am honored to be sitting up here today with PASA. PASA has served Texas Public Schools for over 40 years. They provide demographic studies, student enrollment projections, and long-range facility planning. And so I have our guests here today that are going to go through the hot-off-the-press PASA study, Stacy Tapera and Suzanne Cates.
Thank you. I'm Stacy Tapera. I'm the president of PASA. It is really a pleasure to be back. I see a few recognizable faces and a few new faces. We have been working with Goose Creek for, I meant to look it up exactly how many years, but it's been at least 15 years. And so it is really a pleasure to be back to give you another update. The last time we were here was 3 years ago. And so we have completed this demographic study of enrollment projections to present to you tonight. So first, let's look at historical enrollment over the past, what is this, about 11 or 12 years. We have seen growth and some stabilization of that growth over the past few years. So as Goose Creek is becoming closer to build out and more of the developable land has been built on, we see kind of a tapering off of the growth. But currently, the enrollment as of the last PM snapshot date back in October was 24,108 students. And we see the expected decline during the COVID years and then the recovery after that. And this year saw actually a decrease in enrollment, which is unusual, and we'll talk about the causes for that here in a few minutes. So one of the first and most fundamental things that we look at demographically as far as projecting future enrollment is the number of babies that were born in the district to mothers who live within zip codes in the district. So the maroon line is the number of births that occurred to mothers living in Goose Creek and then those are shifted 5 years forward to line up with the year that those babies would enter kindergarten. And so those two lines are remarkably parallel. It doesn't always happen that way because of people moving in and out of the district with young children before they enter kindergarten. But the important part about this graph is everything to the right of the gray line. So that part of the maroon line represents the babies who have been born in the past 4 years who have not yet entered kindergarten. And so we saw some stabilization, and then in the next few years, we'll see maybe some decline a little bit in kindergarten classes because there were fewer babies born here. But then in the most recent year, there's an uptick, and so we'll see that in a few years worth of kindergarten enrollment. So one of the first, and again, another fundamental part of our studies is to look at every student in your district, enrolled in your district, and where they live. So we take from you, from the district, a list of all of the addresses, and we geocode those students and put them on the map. So each of those dots represents a student that is enrolled in Goose Creek and where they live. So the gray dots represent where students lived in 2019, fall of 2019. The red dots represent the students currently in 2023, fall of 23. But the old students, the gray dots are on top. So the only time you see the current students in red are in neighborhoods where somebody lives now and no one lived 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And so, of course, you see the Baytown Crossing area up in the north. That's the biggest example of where that growth happens. This is important for us to look historically at where students live and have lived and where students are moving around, not just in new housing, but in existing housing, which neighborhoods are transitioning with younger families and regenerating, and which are not. So that's an important part of our studies. When we placed every student on the map, we can then compare for every neighborhood how many students live in that neighborhood compared to how many houses are in that neighborhood from appraisal district's data. And so we can develop a ratio of students per home for every neighborhood in the district. Now, overall, district-wide, it's 0.57 students per house. That's 57 students in every 100 houses. And those are students that are enrolled in the district. And this is very typical for a suburban district like Goose Creek. Many people just assume that there are 2 students per house because there are 2 students per family, right? But there are a lot of houses that have babies that are not in school yet, and there are a lot of houses that are empty nesters and their kids are out of the house. And so when you take that all into account, 0.57 students per home in single-family homes is really quite typical. And the same for multifamily units, 0.37 students per unit, per apartment unit is quite typical. And it's also typical that it's less than in single-family homes. And so when you see a new apartment being built and everybody gets nervous about how many students are going to be yielded into that school, it's important to remember that those apartment complexes look big and dense and they have a lot of people, but they don't have as many students per unit as single-family homes do. It's also important to remember that while 0.57 is the average across the district, each neighborhood has different densities. And so we use this to define comparables when we're projecting for new housing. And so we find a comparable neighborhood and know what kind of student density there is so that we know how many will be yielded in those new homes as they are built. Now, historically, Goose Creek has not been terribly impacted by charter schools pulling students out of the district. Over the past few years, the number of students attending other ISDs has increased a bit. That's the top line in the graph. Most of those students have been pulled out of Goose Creek CISD to attend the virtual schools that are popping up around the state, and some to Deer Park, and I think those are the main ones. However, the charter schools, as I said, have not had a big influence on Goose Creek until this year when Bob Hope's school opened a campus in Baytown. And so that's the spike you see on the bottom graph there this past fall. And so that pulled almost 300 students out of Goose Creek schools, and they're all in the pre-K kindergarten, first, and second grades, because those are the grades that that school opened up with. And so that is one of the major drivers that I alluded to earlier about why the enrollment decreased this year. And so it's important for us as demographers to keep an eye on which charter schools are planning new campuses around the area. And as of now, we don't know of any that are planning any major expansion. So there are these big charter school systems that will have an expansion into a new area. And so far, we don't know of any that are planned for this area.
But are there a lot in the state of Texas that you're hearing about?
Charter schools? Yes, you bet. Yes, the increase over the past decade has been remarkable. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but yes. Especially in the big systems like IL Texas is one that has grown a lot, and KIPP is big in the Houston area. And I mean, there are dozens of these big systems. And so now I will turn the microphone over to Susan Cates, who will talk a little bit about the economy and how that's affecting the new housing industry.
Good evening. So in Baytown, we're going to jump into economy. Baytown reflects a mature, relatively stable economy. Job creation numbers have completely rebounded from the pandemic. We see an additional 1,600 jobs since 2022 in the region. A couple of mitigating factors are maybe slightly concerning in terms of the economy. Unemployment in March was 7% in Baytown, and that is higher than the state or national average, which was at 3.5%. Baytown's population grew between 2010 and 2020, the official census dates, by 11,900 people, but the U.S. Census estimate shows a slight decrease projected in their 2023 projections of 1.7%. This may be attributed to people moving outside of city limits into unincorporated county areas. Small decrease, but it does show a leveling of population in the area. And then while median income grew by 3.64% to a little over $63,000, that still is lagging behind the state and national average of just over $74,000 for median household income. Maybe more impactful in terms of the housing market is interest rates. 2 years ago, we all enjoyed those 3% interest rates, but over the past 12 to 18 months, those numbers crept up toward 8%, peaking in October at 7.78%. With median home prices in the Goose Creek CISD area being between $250,000 and $300,000, that means an extra $750 a month for mortgage payments, and that is a significant deterrent for most home buyers. Another.
The government says our economy is the best there that it's ever been. Imagine that.
Imagine that. Another result is that existing homeowners are choosing to remain in those homes that are holding those 3% interest rates rather than moving to maybe downsizing empty nesters, moving into a smaller home where it would be backfilled with a family with students. And that is reflected in the MLS numbers that has shown between July 2022 and July 2023 that resales in Goose Creek CISD were down 9.4%. We are still in a buyer's market. You can look at the chart in the kind of top right-hand side. Goose Creek area has typically flowed right along with the Houston market, but in 2023, there was this huge surge that bumped it up to 9.2 months of inventory, with 6 months being what's considered a balanced market. So it jumped up to 9.2. We think that that was largely attributable to the success of that Baytown Crossing master planned community. They had a lot of inventory that hit the market, but it was also a very successful development, and that is why we're seeing a lot of development happening and coming into the pipeline in that area north of I-10. So.
What are the job creators? Do y'all have an idea where those, you said there was so many
So
Was it the plants? Was it the school district you're talking about, or a combination?
I'd have to look back, but the top employment is health, education, and construction. So those are the top three employment sectors in the region. So that would be where the majority of those are coming from. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the specific developments in your community. These are, as you can see, all of them above, north of I-10. Scotts Bend, Bay Creek, and Marigold Meadows are all developments that are kind of in the pipeline. We are seeing infrastructure development starting to happen, but we don't actually have vacant developable lots yet. Baytown Crossing will be completing their development within the 10-year projection period. And then the outlier is Highland Farms. This is over on the far western border, just above I-10, just north of I-10. And this is going to be a manufactured home community that Civitas is planning in that area.
When you say manufactured home, you mean mobile home?
Yes. On this map, you can see the location of development. The red squares are the areas that are currently developing, that are actually selling in those developments currently. The ones that are in gray are the ones that are coming soon. They have approved plans, approved plats, and are moving forward. And just like we spoke of, all of the development is happening north of I-10, some immediately south of I-10, in that central part of the district, and then over on the far east, you see the remaining South Winds development, and then a little bit of development happening south of Rand Parkway. I will mention that we are projecting in the latter part of this projection period, the 10-year projection period, that the City of Baytown's tax increment reinvestment zone number 2 will likely spur some development down along Grand Parkway and then redevelopment into the Lee College downtown area. This heat map shows kind of the path of development through the 10-year period. Map 1 is the first year. Map 2 is through year 4. Map 3 is through year 7, and 4 is the full 10-year projection period. And there's no surprise that dark maroon area is where the bulk of your development will be taking place. So these are kind of the things to watch over the next 10-year projection period. The first one is mixed use development. This is an emerging trend throughout the region, and something that we tend to see in our more mature districts is that when developers buy a tract of land, they have to get the larger return on investment. So we tend to see these mixed use type of developments coming in where you have commercial, residential, and employment centers all located within a certain space of land. And this will be taking place, the San Jacinto Mall redevelopment here along San Jacinto Boulevard, and then in that TERS redevelopment area down along Grand Parkway. Those are all areas to watch for mixed use development. Manufactured home development, again, we mentioned Highland Farms already, but also there's opportunity throughout the district for some infill development of smaller manufactured home communities, because this is still an affordable choice for workforce housing in this market. Growth will likely be outside of the city limits, so it will be subject to utility availability for those developments. And then again, re-emphasizing that development north of I-10, most of the large parcels are already in development in that area, but there is still opportunity for some properties to be assembled large enough for additional developments to enter the pipeline.
You mentioned the mall. Do you have information about some development that we don't know about?
Well, that one has been slower to develop than we thought that it would, and that is largely due to the cost to borrow money for commercial development currently. The market is just tight for lending in that space. And so that is, the information that we get from the city is that it is still in the pipeline, but that it is slower coming to fruition than was initially projected. Multifamily we'll touch on briefly. In addition to the comments that I've already made on mixed use, multifamily does always start to fill the pipeline when your larger single family residential lots are already filled up. So we anticipate that modern rental properties with high-end finishes and amenities will emerge to fill the gap created by a somewhat aging apartment stock currently in the district. And these units will be more attractive to young professionals drawn to these mixed-use type of developments. You'll see that of the developments that are currently leasing up or under construction, we project 661 units to be added in the next 5 years. And then over the full 10-year projection period, almost 2,200 units. And this again shows the location. We have one project that is leasing up currently, that's Grand Bay, and then the ones in red are under construction, and the ones in gray are coming soon. So total over the 10-year projection period, 8,350 total projected new occupancies in the district, 64% of those in the single family space, almost 24% in multifamily and build to rent, with 10% in manufactured housing. And this is just a different visual of the same information that shows there's a little bit of a slowdown in the single family volume in the first couple of years, and then it starts to creep up over the projection period, but relatively level. That's the housing that's in the maroon. But coming in behind that is multifamily and also manufactured homes that will be filling the pipeline to add additional housing in the district. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Stacy.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit now about how all of this, thank you. Let's talk now about how all of this rolls into how many students are anticipated to be in each school each year. But before we get into that, let's talk about where we were 3 years ago. When we made our projections 3 years ago, we projected a low, moderate, and high growth scenario for each year. And in the fall of 21, the actual enrollment was in maroon there on the far left, was between the low and moderate high growth scenarios. And then in year 2, in the fall of 22, the actual enrollment was between moderate and high growth scenarios. And so we're very pleased with how that turned out. And then this year there was a drop in enrollment. And so what changed? What is different from our assumptions that we had to make 3 years ago? Well, first of all, the housing construction, of course, slowed down. The mortgage rates, we all understand what has happened with the cooling of the housing market as a result of the higher interest rates. And many of the developments that were planned 3 years ago have been postponed. And so Susan also talked about the established housing, those empty nesters holding on to 3% mortgages are unmotivated to sell their homes and downsize, and so that is less opportunity for young families with children to move into those homes. And so we have seen a decline in that regeneration in those existing homes. The kindergarten enrollment is always a harbinger for what is to come, as far as how many kindergarten students are enrolled each year. And the kindergarten enrollment, of course, everywhere in the nation dropped in the COVID year. But in this district, the enrollment now the kindergarten enrollment has not recovered after COVID. So the kindergarten enrollment is lower this year than it was in 2019. And so then that gets perpetuated year after year with those smaller and smaller kindergarten classes as they move throughout the other grades. And then finally, we talked about the Bob Hope Charter School that opened, and so pulled almost 300 students out of the district. And so those are some of the assumptions that we made 3 years ago that have changed since then. So, and this sort of summarizes a lot of these factors that go into our projections. You've heard a lot about new housing, and of course that's the biggest driver of growth in the district. And with all of the new houses that we are projecting to be occupied in the next decade, and the ratio of students per home in comparable neighborhoods, we are suggesting that about 3,400 new students will come into the district living in those new houses. That does not mean that the district will grow by 3,400 students over the next 10 years, because that growth is mitigated by some of these other factors, like the stable birth rate and the smaller and smaller incoming kindergarten class sizes. And or not small, the stable size of the kindergarten class, but those smaller kindergarten classes that are coming in are replacing the larger graduating classes that are leaving. And so there's currently a really big cohort that has been working its way through the grade levels. It's currently in 8th and 9th and 10th grade. And so in a few years, when all of those kids have graduated out of those big classes, then there will be a natural deceleration of growth in about fall of 26 and 27, as those graduating classes are leaving and being replaced by smaller kindergarten classes. And we've also touched on the regeneration of homes with younger families, and any new charter schools that might move into the neighborhood, into the area. So all of these factors are rolled into our projections to develop a low growth, moderate growth, and high growth scenario over the next 10 years. Now, based on what we think is the most likely set of events to happen over the next 10 years, that is our moderate growth scenario. It's sort of our most likely based on everything we know today. And then we have a low growth and a high growth scenario that bracket in what we consider a reasonable reality based on things that could change feasibly in the next 10 years. And so those assumptions I have talked about ad nauseum now revolve around the housing market and the economy, and new home or existing homes reselling and unemployment and birth rates and charter schools. So all of those factors could lead to a low growth or a high growth scenario. But as I mentioned, the moderate growth is sort of our most likely scenario. And so this heat map shows, with all of those factors rolled in, the growth that we anticipate happening by planning unit, which are little neighborhood blocks, sort of, we use as building blocks. The red areas in the north, largely, are the areas of the projected highest growth over the next 10 years. So anything in the darkest red, we are projecting more than 300 total student population increase over 10 years. And so most of that is north of I-10. But how is that related to the attendance zones, to the schools? Where is that growth happening in which school? So at the elementary level, of course, Walker is projected to receive the bulk of that growth because of most of those new housing developments that Susan talked about are in the Walker zone, and that's around primarily around Garth and Main, and then east of Main, so up around Memorial High School. Also some growth projected in other areas as well at the elementary level. But how does this compare to the capacities of the schools, and which schools can accommodate this growth in students? So this is a bunch of numbers for your reference later, but the important part is that in the light yellow, those are the years that a school is projected to exceed 100% of its permanent capacity. This does not consider any portable buildings, temporary buildings. And so in dark yellow or orange are the years in which those schools are projected to exceed 120% of their permanent capacity. And that's sort of our indication to advise you that something needs to happen as far as making a change to accommodate that additional population, because at 120% capacity, it's difficult to manage the common spaces, even if you could put enough portable buildings. And so we see There are several options that can be considered. So programs and rezoning, yes, or in some cases new facilities or expansions or a new school. So the year then that Victoria Walker is projected to exceed that 120% threshold is in the fall of about 26, and then Highlands in about 2031. Now, when we look at the percent utilization, which is what I just highlighted back there, but this gives you all of the numbers for each year. And so again, Victoria Walker is projected to exceed that 120% threshold in about 2027. But notice by the end of this projection period, 183% utilization of Victoria Walker. And so that's almost 2 schools worth of students projected to live in the attendance zone that is currently Victoria Walker. And at Highlands, also about 128% utilization. But I also draw your attention to the blue and gray rows. So those are schools that are currently and projected in the future to be underutilized. And this is even more striking when you see how those are ranged geographically. So it's very clear that the schools in the north are projected to receive growth and in some cases be overcrowded, and yet the cluster of schools in the south have some underutilization currently and projected. This is 10 years out at the elementary level. Right. Built out. So yes, so Benuelos is projected to be up to, currently at about 91% utilization, projected up to 107%. And so that's illustrated here in the not the darkest pink, but the second darkest pink. Okay. So at the junior school level, again, this is the projected growth. And the highest area of growth is in Green Junior School, followed by Highlands and Gentry, with a stable population projected in Horace Mann and a slight declining population in Cedar Bayou. And how does that relate to the capacities of those schools? Well, we see that Green is projected to exceed that 120% threshold in about the fall of 2030. So you have some time to think about how that might be, how that overcrowding might be accommodated. And again, we look at the geography of that overcrowding, and you can see that in 10 years at Green at 136% utilization, Highlands at 84 and Gentry at 92, closest geographically to Green. And the schools, Baytown and Cedar Bayou and Horace Mann, also at less than about 75% utilization 10 years out. And finally, at the high school level, again, not surprisingly, the growth in the north at Memorial High School, stable population projected at Sterling, and a slight decline in population projected at Lee. The utilization levels at the high school level have been, or any potential overcrowding has been mitigated over the past several years with these other programs, the Early Impact College and Stewart Career Tech, that are pulling students out of the 3 comprehensive high schools to provide accommodations for them in other locations. These projections assume stable enrollment in those programs, and I know that there are plans to grow that enrollment, but because we don't know, how that could happen or which students might be pulled from which comprehensive high schools, we've just kept that constant so that any overcrowding at Memorial could be mitigated by the expansion of some of the other specialized programs pulling students out. And so in 10 years, this is the projected utilization at the 3 comprehensive high schools. Again, assuming that those special programs remain stable. And so with that, you have been very patient. I will take any questions that you might have.
That's a lot of numbers.
It's a lot of information.
When was this PowerPoint made available to Goose Creek administration?
So a early version of it was presented to Dr. O'Brien last week, and then I sent this this afternoon right before I left.
Okay. Thank you.
Got it on there as soon as we could.
Any other questions?
You know, they see the economy, they see that thing, they don't, want to, that's expensive to have kids and to raise a family and buy homes that they can't afford no more, and so, it's.
Certainly. Thank you.
And Susan, thank you. Yeah. And Kendall, good job.
That does bring us back to our schedule. The next one up will be the 24-25 budget workshop number 5.
All right, good evening, President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, trustees. Tonight brings us to our 5th and final budget workshop of this budget season, and we will talk about the home stretch here in just a moment, and with that, we will jump right in. So we're going to also talk about compensation highlights, and then we'll talk about the summarization of the budget's property values and tax rates. As I said, we're on the home stretch. We will not ask for any board action this evening. It's just an information session. We didn't need an early start because we did an early meeting early on. We added an additional meeting, and we've gone over everything pretty much. So much of this will be a review and repetition, perhaps presented in a different format, in the legally adopted format. Then we will ask the board consider adopting the budget on the 17th. Just to review the compensation highlights, which are incorporated in this budget, the general pay increase for all employees was approved by the board of 4%. Teacher starting pay is going to be $63,500. Teachers will receive an increase of $26.50. And we also made some adjustments to those 8 to 25 years of experience bands. And then also some other equity adjustments to manual trades and para and auxiliary. All right, now we'll get into the actual budgets. These budget assumptions incorporate the budget reduction plan. All of it that we discussed up until now has been incorporated. We're going to assume that, much like PASA said previously, we're going to go with average daily attendance being flat. Again, the general pay increase of 4% is incorporated, and we've gone back to normal property value increases to the around 2.5% to 3% range. So property values have gone back to pretty historical increases, and we did see a slight increase in both M&O and INS. We got the $465 million increase in M&O, which is maintenance and operations. And then the interest in sinking, we have an increase of $219 million.
Again, these are very preliminary. We received these preliminary numbers at the end of April. We don't get certified values until August from HCAD. Estimated tax rates, we don't anticipate a tax increase. There will probably be a slight compression amount, not a large amount on the M&O tax rate. But again, we cannot calculate that until we receive the certified values. So this is proper form for what we will request that you all consider approving next time on the 17th. You'll see the general fund there in the first column. All the way to the bottom, you can see the $1.8 million revenue under expenditures amount. And again, it includes all the reductions, it includes the raises, and it's all inclusive. It also includes the operating transfer in from capital projects. The school nutrition fund has a planned deficit because we need to spend down that fund balance because we had excess reserves due to efficiencies and COVID funding. So now we're spending that down. Debt service, we have a slight surplus right now of 4.8, which brings the grand total of all funds combined to about $2 million decrease, and our total estimated fund balance combined is about $147.5 million, with general fund being $102.8. Also, for transparency purposes, this is not a legally adopted budget, but we do include this so you can see what capital improvement project fund looks like, because we are transferring funds out of that fund for next year's budget. You can see the estimated revenues about $4.8 million, and estimated expenditures are about $3.8, which gives us a slight surplus of about $1 million. And an estimated fund balance as of the end of this year, 6/30, of about $15.4 million. And then you see that transfer out to general fund. That's the one that we're using to supplement and offset the budget deficit. And then you see an estimated fund balance at the end of next year of about $4.6 million. And of that $4.6 million, we incorporated $500,000 from the FTZ to supplement next year's budget planning process for 25-26, and additionally Chapter 313 revenue of around $4 million. So you see, of the almost 4.7, we're going to have about 4.5 earmarked for general fund offset. And with that, we are on the home stretch. We'll have the public hearing and adoption of the budget on the 17th, and then we will in the future, in October-ish, we will have the tax rate adoption after we receive the certified values. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Okay, it's expected that I ask questions. So in October, when we address the tax rate, how much wiggle room do we have as a board? Up or down?
We don't have any unless we have a
and
TRE.
Why is that?
Well, we can't raise it unless we have a tax ratification election.
Right.
I mean, I guess if you wanted to decrease it, that would be, then you wouldn't have the revenue you're having coming in.
Right.
So,
yeah. We only have wiggle room down.
Yeah.
Okay. For simplicity's sake, let's say I pay $100 in taxes to Goose Creek. How much of that $100 stays in Goose Creek when I write my check?
Right now, probably it's less than half, but it's less than half right now.
$49.
Something like about 49.
Okay.
You're right.
Where does the other 51 go?
That goes. So we're not in a recap. We're in a very little recapture area right now. We're paying, actually what we're paying locally is about 49% of the total funding. So what the state does, and very cleverly I must say, is they collect all they can locally first. Right. So, and then the state offsets their share. So if we just so happen to collect 100% of our taxes instead of, 95% or whatever, they're going to allow us to do that, and that's going to define how much they're going to chip in, because they're going to make sure they get all they can get locally, and then the balance they offset it based on your ADA and your entitlements and your student populations and that sort of thing. So,
as an example, though, a rural school district may get 90% supported by state funding, versus local taxes.
Yes, exactly. So we are considered, property wealthy.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
We're a Robin Hood district?
Yes, we are. Just slightly again. I mean, 2019 put us back in non-recapture territory, but now as the property values, especially when they went up, during COVID, they've leveled out again, but that put us back in that territory. Not huge. We're not sending huge sums of money to the state right now, only a few $100,000, but as property values continue to increase, that number will continue to increase, and the state's share will continue to decrease. So right now, the state's paying about 49%-ish, 48, 49, but it will continue to go back down, and local taxpayers will be paying more of the burden for public ed.
Confirmed.
That is correct.
Thank y'all.
Well, I don't have a question, but I just want to say that, that 4% increase for the teachers is great. I think, it's going to help.
Absolutely.
Keep people here, for one, and maybe attract a few teachers, good teachers, quality.
Absolutely.
And
we hope so.
Before we adopt the budget next meeting, congratulations and thanks to administration and everyone involved in cutting this down to where we expected you to. We saw all the blood, sweat, and tears you put into getting it there.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you as well.
And
Appreciate
keeping it together when we were arguing and fighting over everything and yelling at you and everything else. But yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we'll have our SHAC report.
Kendall again?
But she's not the big boss here. Mr. Reed, our parent, is the big boss on this presentation.
All right. Good evening again, Dr. O'Brien, President Guy, board members. Today, our team is here to present the Goose Creek SHAC annual report. Before we get started, I'd like to honor any of our school health advisory council members who may be in the audience joining us. Is anyone here would like to stand up?
And up here on the board.
And on the board, yes.
We had more earlier.
Thank you, Ms. Kostek. I saw you.
Thank you so much for your commitment to serving our district in this capacity. And so as we get started, I'd like to welcome our incredible team that is going to present the report. I have Amanda Kennington with me, who is our SHAC facilitator. And then I also have our parent chair, Mr. David Reed, and our Director of Nutrition Services, Natalie Edwards, who's also on the SHAC. Okay. Ms. Kennington, can you push forward? Thank you. Okay, so by law, every district is required to have a school health advisory council, and the primary goal of the SHAC, which is our school health advisory council, is to assist the district in ensuring that local community values are reflected in the district's health education program. And so the specific duties of the SHAC include recommending policies, procedures, strategies, and curriculum for health education. increasing parent awareness on available community programs and services, as well as considering evidence-based strategies and techniques to develop, implement, and review the wellness guidelines and goals outlined by our district policy.
The GCC ISD Board of Trustees approved the appointment of 51 members to the Volunteer Advisory Council. Membership of the SHAC strives to reflect the geographic, ethnic, gender, and economic diversity of the district. The GCC ISD SHAC must be composed of a majority of parents who are not employed by the district. The SHAC was composed of 28 parents, 8 campus staff, 9 district staff, and 3 community organizations. I'm currently serving my second term as the SHAC parent co-chair, and happy to highlight that 26 members, or 51% of the SHAC, were returning members. This group of individuals provide invaluable advice to the district on methods to advance student academic performance by promoting, practicing, and coordinating school health, education, and services.
So the SHAC in 2023-2024, our goals were centered on coordination of wellness education efforts for students, staff, and parents. The whole school, whole community, whole child, or WISC model is used as a framework illustrating the many ways that home, school, and community must interact to contribute to each child's success. The district SHAC leaders collaborated with various departments, campus health advisory committees, and community partners to complete the following activities. With 97% of GCCIC campuses utilize the Alliance for Healthier Generations Healthy Schools program to evaluate the implementation of your wellness policy and to set goals for coordinated school health and wellness efforts based on their campus need. The district implemented PE and health curriculum material and successfully utilized the CATCH programming. There was a district-wide campaign on vaping prevention, including partnering with Bakota to install a vape disposal box at the GCCISD Police Department, and we had some peer-to-peer presentations on the dangers of vaping. Measured coordinated school health according to the wellness plan implementation, and we also conducted a triennial review on the assessment policy. Here in the slides, you'll see pictures from when the district hosted a community wellness festival earlier this year. We had over 1,000 attendees, 100 volunteers, 16 campus school health committees led activities and had nutritional education booths. We had approximately 58 resource vendors, 38 flu shots were provided, 200 families were offered free fresh produce, and over 7,000 pounds of food was distributed by Hearts and Hands of Baytown. And the Counseling and Student Social Emotional Wellness Department also hosted educational presentations on the dangers of fentanyl at the event. So just to highlight, we had 4 general SHAC meetings. In these meetings, we included, I'm just going to highlight a few. The first one, we highlighted Alliance for Healthier Generations, America's Healthiest Schools. This is a national recognition. So you notice on the sides, Alamo, Harlem, and Impact were nationally recognized. So we do like to honor our campuses and celebrate their success. We also had community partners engaging with our schools to promote active recess. We had a United Way Day of Caring volunteers. They worked with administrators on campuses to paint educational playground markings. They built garden beds and enhanced outdoor learning spaces. And as you know, Goose Creek is a proud partner and member of the Be Well Baytown Steering Committee. Representatives shared the impact and importance of sustaining many initiatives, including comprehensive physical activity programs and support for professional development of staff members. 25 campus school health advisory committees, or CSHACs we call them, across our district are doing a phenomenal job, as you saw earlier from their wellness awards, creating healthier environments via coordinated school health. These committees are a corollary to the district SHAC. At the regular meetings, in addition to conducting our formal business, the SHAC celebrates those campus and district health and wellness efforts to educate students, staff, and families about the benefits of moving and staying healthy, valuing healthy eating, and promoting healthy habits as pictured in the following slides. See some pictures from our nutrition promotion around the district, nutrition education and physical activity, some farm to school activities, family engagement, such as our walk and bike to schools, healthy fundraisers, and community involvement. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Natalie Edwards.
Well, the SHAC is divided into 4 standing subcommittees. So between these 4 subcommittees listed below, nutrition, health, employee wellness, and family engagement, These subcommittees hosted 19 meetings to ensure that all members were able to engage in all the efforts. We SHAC committees gather data from direct observations, campus healthy school assessments, catch implementation surveys, and specific activities associated with wellness. In particular, the nutrition subcommittee allowed members the opportunity to come on campus and observe meal services at all grade levels, see different points of sale, menu offerings. They were also able to learn more about promotions that the nutrition services team does, such as Tasted Tuesday, other contests, submitting healthy recipes.
Did you say Tasty Tuesday?
Tasted Tuesday.
No,
So,
Tasted.
Tasted Tuesday. That's
Try new and different foods.
That's where we try something new, a vegetable or fruit that's not normally on the menu. So it'll be something different, asparagus, beets, or something that we don't normally have on the menu. And we do samplings with that. We also this year were able to award campuses that participated in our Farm Fresh recipe contest for 4th and 5th graders, aeroponic gardens. So the campuses won, students won. And we also participate in Catch Nights, the cafeteria teams. As you see the picture from Travis, they love to put together their fruit and veggie trays for Catch Nights. And we really appreciate the commitment of all of our nutrition services team and all of our Catch members that participated with us.
That's the recipes that they use for those trays?
One recipe y'all got served at one of the board
really?
meetings. Yes. And it's the January board. So we have the students come and let y'all see what recipes they submit. And the winning recipe, the catering team recreates it to serve for the board.
I was going to say, I can't speak for everybody else, but I need them recipes.
Okay. We'll make sure you get a recipe, but
yeah.
Okay, so just so everyone in the audience is aware of the communication for SHAC, there is a Goose Creek CISD website that houses agenda, minutes, and audio recordings. They can be found on the meetings tab on the SHAC website. Meeting notices are posted 72 hours in advance of general SHAC meetings, and all questions can be emailed to the SHAC email listed. And in addition to what we've already discussed today, the work is, of course, ongoing. And so the SHAC will continue to implement strategies to meet their goals. But in addition, there are new requirements with House Bill 3908 really around fentanyl abuse information. And so there will be a focus next year for the SHAC to look at that for our district and what that looks like.
Really?
Fentanyl abuse.
So we're talking about health and PE and all that. Title IX is not going to affect us with the changes they're making, or do we know that? Oh, we don't. Okay. Just curious.
What the SHAC would like the board to consider is the following 4 recommendations. Continue to support maintaining the evaluation of the FFA local utilizing the current method. Second, incorporating the FFA wellness policy into our current strategies and objectives. Third is expanding implementation of district recess guidelines to all elementary campuses. And then fourth, a process for GCCISD SHAC to provide input and strengthen dialogue for continued collaboration and alignment.
I'm available for Tasted Tuesday, by the way.
And finally, the SHAC would like to invite individuals that are interested in participating in the 24-25 committee to complete an application. You can visit the GCCISD SHAC website. Applications will also be communicated via Parent Square, and paper copies are also available upon request. Thank you, Dr. O'Brien, President Guy, and members of the school board for the opportunity to present the ongoing efforts of the GCCISD SHAC, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yep.
Just an invite. Thank you. To shack@gccisd.net. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Kendall.
And thank you, Mr. Reed, for your leadership. Appreciate you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Next up, we do have our district level anti-bullying committee update, annual update.
All right.
thank y'all for being here tonight.
All right. Good evening. Dr. O'Brien, Board of Trustees. So we want to present our end of the year district level anti-bullying committee update and presentation. So we have a pretty big group here tonight to give that presentation. So I'll go ahead and introduce each person. Precious Reminick is our Director of Social Emotional Learning and Student Wellness. Talise Anawan is our principal at Crockett Elementary. Daniel Blanson is our principal at Horace Mann Junior School. And then Carrie Smith is our Director of Student Services. And so we want to give you an overview of the work that the committee has done and also some of the accomplishments as well as some challenges that we're facing going into next year. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Reminick to start us off.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Our purpose for the Anti-Bullying Committee here in the district is to ensure a safe learning environment so that our students can later go on out in our community and in the workplace and have some good skills. We want them to be able to thrive. So looking back at this past school year, we started the year off with 3 pre-back-to-school administrator type meetings. We met twice in the fall, twice in the spring, and then we also presented at the Safe and Supportive Schools Committee meetings as well. So we wanted to start off this evening with the definition of bullying, which comes from the state of Texas. And as you can see, we put some words in red so that they would stand out a little bit more. It's a single significant act or a pattern of acts by one or more students. It's an imbalance of power. It can be written or verbal or by electronic means or physical conduct. Then it later goes on to tell you it can be physical. It can be severe, persistent. It can be threatening and intimidating into our educational environment. It may disrupt our learning environment and an orderly operation of the classroom or school. It may infringe on the rights of the victim at school, and it also includes cyberbullying. Here's our checklist that was created about 2 years ago. That's available on our website as well. And it's just a guide for families to use to determine whether it's bullying or not. And it also goes on to even talk about cyberbullying. So it basically takes all of that information from the previous slide and it puts it into a checklist. So again, this spring, we wanted to hear from our students. So we gave them their spring student data survey. And so I'm getting ready to break down just what our students had to say. At the elementary level, you'll see that the highest rated response that our elementary students agreed on, and we started in 3rd grade, so this is 3rd through 12th grade. So, but our 3rd through 5th graders said that they believe that their principal and assistant principals cared about them, their schools are welcoming, and that their teachers encouraged them. Whenever it came to the highest rated responses for disagree or strongly disagree, the students felt like they don't speak about their schools in a positive manner. The adults in their school are aware of the bullying that goes around. They don't believe that they're aware of that. And then you'll see that most of the teachers are consistent and fair with students when it comes to discipline in the classroom. 25% disagree. And we contribute that to sometimes students may not understand that an investigation has occurred, but they may see a student back in the classroom. But first of all, that information can't be shared with other families because of FERPA. Sometimes we have students with disabilities, and so those things have to be handled in a certain manner as well. When we look at our elementary students with the highest rate of response, with the type of bullying in elementary school is verbal bullying, bullying about racial and cultural issues, and then bullying about physical appearances and characteristics. You'll see our secondary data. Again, this is 6th through 12th grade. You'll see some similar responses. Again, they feel like school is welcoming. However, they feel like we don't speak or the kids don't speak positively about their campus. Again, addressing bullying consistently was a concern as well. At the junior high level, you'll see verbal bullying again. Bullying about family, wealth, and poverty came in at 2nd, and then physical bullying 3rd. At the high school level, social bullying, being left out or ignored. Verbal bullying came in at 2nd for high school, And then bullying about racial and cultural issues came in third at the high school level. So when they came together at the round tables, and that's the meetings that we had throughout the year, but at our very last meeting that we had together, our elementary students gave us some information, and so did our secondary students. Our elementary students, when asked, well, what can we do about this to address these issues? Our elementary students shared that our students are judging one another based on their looks. So when they're talking to each other, they're talking about how they look. And that sometimes our kids have anger issues, and they bring those issues back to the school. They believe that we can address it by having teachers to address concerns discreetly, not in front of the entire class or in front of others. Also have more adults on duty, including in the hallway, and then giving severe consequences and increase the punishment for repeat offenders. At the secondary level, they're saying that it's verbal bullying because kids think it's funny. They're trying to be cool. And that's where that social bullying comes in as well. They believe, again, that we can address this by having more teachers in high traffic areas and in the restroom. They would like a rubric for physical bullying. And then the last one that they noted is that phones are not the cause of bullying, and it might heighten other forms of bullying if taken away. So that was their voice.
Good evening. So when looking at where we were rated strongly agree, one of the factors that we feel contributed to that was Start With Hello. So if you're not familiar with the Start With Hello campaign that we've rolled out this year, it's a see something, do something model. If you see a student who's alone or sad or down, you see something, you say something, or you start simply by saying hello. So treating each other with kindness and making sure everybody is included and not feeling left out. One of the things that we've done is incorporate many different ways to report bullying through QR codes or anonymous reporting through ClassLink. And so that's where you'll see in the data an increase in the number of reports because students now have more ways to report at their fingertips, whether it's on a bookmark with a QR code or QR codes around this classroom, or in ClassLink, students have an abundance of ways that they can report unkind behavior or bullying. Administrators provide safe and supportive environments for students, as indicated in the data that you saw in a previous slide. 90% of our students feel like their administrators and their teachers are caring about them. And when it goes to the area of what we're struggling with, one of the biggest areas that I see at the elementary level is students do not want to be called snitches. That is a social norm that has gotten a little bit out of control. They don't want to tell. Even parents are saying don't snitch. So that's something that we're having to combat at the elementary level as well. When filling out those bullying reports, we have created an abundance of ways that students can report anonymously, but sometimes it's too anonymous. Johnny is being mean. We have 5 Johnnies on campus. We don't know when it happened, what time it happened, where it happened, if it's something that happened yesterday. So one of the things we want to do is, while we're doing these guidance lessons, start encouraging and teaching students the best way to fill out these anonymous reports so we can respond to them.
But they reported on the survey.
I'm sorry?
The elementary reported on the survey, according to Dr. Remnick, that they said that there was a bullying going on and that the teachers and the adults weren't aware of it.
Yes, sir. And
so they did report it.
Yes, sir. What I'm referring to is they can report an act anonymously, and sometimes it's very vague. They'll say Johnny is being mean. Right. And as the administrator, when I get that report, it's hard to do an investigation because I don't know. I have 5 Johnnies on my campus. I don't know which student they're referring to or what time of day it happened, so I can't conduct an investigation. So what we're saying is we want to incorporate more lessons on how to fill those out so that we can respond in a faster approach. So students at the round table wanted to encourage one another more. So one of the suggestions a young lady said was to put sticky notes in the restroom to encourage each other. I want to shout out my AP. She actually put QR codes around the building for students to shout out each other, and it plays on a loop during lunches. So students are able to encourage and say kind things to one another throughout the school year. Students are not a fan of group punishment. And again, going back to students not being called snitches, we also want to address when students have systems in place for when students threaten one another for telling. So there's consequences when you're doing those investigations. You are not to threaten or have contact with those students for telling. And although we do a lot on the checklist and saying what is and what is not bullying, at the elementary level, we still want to address unkind behavior. So whether it's not tagged as bullying or considered substantiated, we do want to provide those supports for those students who are displaying unkind behaviors or not following the expectations on the campus. And just as Dr. Reminick mentioned, we want to increase adult supervision around the campus, especially those high traffic areas such as recess and the playground.
Good afternoon, President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, trustees. My name is Daniel Blanson, Principal of Horseman Jr. I'm excited to be here today on behalf of our secondary students as well as our secondary principals to share celebrations, but also highlight campus programs, district initiatives, and most importantly, multi-tier support systems that we have in place that has aided us in identifying and addressing bullying at the campus level. At this time, President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, and trustees, I would like to present to you student result data based on the Student Climate and Culture Survey from last spring. But I'm also going to provide to you guys some clarity and context on why our students selected agreed, strongly agreed, disagree, and strongly disagree for specific questions, okay? So if you take a look at agree and strongly agree, our students, they feel that our teachers make a positive impact. Now, this is a big win for Goose Creek ISD. This speaks to me as an administrator saying that we recruit the right talent and we cultivate the talent that we have here. But most importantly, there is a sense of community and building positive relationships, and it starts from the district level all the way down to the campus level. Another thing I want to highlight, we do a good job of celebrating many cultures on our campus, on all of our campus, but also highlighting contributions that they made to society. So all of our students feel welcome and valued as they walk the halls of our schools. Lastly, I love how we eliminate language barriers in Goose Creek ISD. We always have Spanish speakers. We always have multiple ways of getting the message out to the parents because most of our parents do not speak English. However, we don't use that as an excuse. Anytime we communicate information, we always have it in different languages, and I'm very proud of that. When I look at disagree and strongly disagree, the first thing I see is fights on the campus. So as a secondary principal, it is so important to make sure that student safety is our number one priority, and we do that by voicing the importance of supervision. We talk about it in faculty meetings. We talk about it in IoT meetings. We create duty schedules designed in a way where we have personnel in certain spots, the blind spots in the building, high traffic areas to ensure student safety. Another concern that we are addressing at the secondary level is our students feel that it's a lack of appreciation for the campus. So what we're doing at the secondary level is we're promoting student agency. We want to make sure that students have a voice. We want to make sure that we have committees and ambassadors and student organizations to get their feedback on in their interest on how we can improve the learning setting here on our campuses. And lastly, the adults should have more dialogue in regards to bullying. And so like Dr. Reminick stated, we do have multi-tiered support systems on our campus. We utilize our counselors. We make sure that we have conflict resolutions. We make sure that we use peer-to-peer interventions. We make sure that we educate our staff members on the importance of bullying and the effects of bullying, and we do that during Character Strong. Every Wednesday, we have many seminars, many activities to talk about what is bullying, how to address bullying, how to report bullying, the consequences of bullying. And if you have been bullied, here are the supports that we have in place.
So what happens to somebody when they have a fight? Is that, I mean, right off the bat, how do you decipher who was being bullied and who was defending themselves?
Just through our investigation. We go through an investigation. We make sure that we're very thorough in our investigation. And then we look at all the factors. We contact student services, and we have collaboration, and we're guided on what the next steps will be. If it is bullying, we will address it accordingly. If it's just a one-time isolated fight, we'll address it accordingly.
So in your best guesstimation, how many fights did you have on your campus this year?
Ms. Smith, maybe about less than, I didn't have that many on the campus, maybe less than 11, if that. Supervision is
11 fights?
maybe 11.
On your campus alone?
On my campus, yes, sir. Sir.
And how many of those cases were bullying? If you,
I would say, no, we didn't pick none. None.
None of them.
No. No. Thank you, sir.
All right, so moving to our data overview. This is the cumulative data from the last 3 years and end of year data for each of the years. So as you can see over, well, to my right, your left, or actually your right, the total for 21-22, we had a total of 60 investigations. In 22-23, it went up to 86. And this past school year, we were at 125 investigations. So we've doubled the number of investigations in the last 2 years.
Why is that, Ms. Smith? Why do you think that there's double the number?
Because
I would think we had near the same amount of students everywhere.
Because again, I think it goes back to what Ms. Onawan and Mr. Blanson were saying, is the amount of information provided to the students, providing them the QR codes. And I definitely feel, even though, like she said, they need to do better on their anonymous reporting as far as providing information, many students are very detailed on who it is, where it's happening. It's our younger students sometimes that, have a little trouble articulating exactly.
Well, I get that, but I'm surprised that they even said. I think she said that elementary they're talking about being snitches, and that's amazing to me that the kids that young would be talking like that. I mean, because I don't see them like that. I can see the high school and the junior high, talking like that, but elementary kids, that's kind of.
But I think you just said exactly the reason. Most of them have older siblings. So They hear from their older siblings, don't you snitch. Don't you snitch. Snitches get stitches. That's what the older ones will tell their younger siblings.
Right.
So as far as substantiated and unsubstantiated, victims substantiated ran at about 11 this year. Victims unsubstantiated was at 75. Subjects substantiated was at 18, and subjects unsubstantiated was at 107.
So what were the unsubstantiated ones considered?
Whenever the campus administrators do their investigation, they do not substantiate it as bullying. So there was not, when they go through the investigation and looking at all the witnesses and the statements, they did not deem that it was actual bullying. As Mr. Blanson said, let's say it was a fight. It was not bullying. It was two boys that had beef with each other.
But surely somewhere out there we believe that fights are caused by someone being bullied.
No.
Not in every
No,
case.
But the litmus test was on an earlier slide, all the boxes below the definition. Is that on slide number 2?
So those 75 unsubstantiated victims we had to look at and say, no, you're just being picked on.
Or they could have been.
You misunderstood what they said. Or no, you just got your feelings hurt.
Or it could be that they contributed to that. In the situation, I know we've had, and I'll use elementary specifically, and we've definitely dealt with it at junior high. Someone wants to say, oh, so-and-so said this about me. Well, when they get them called into the office, then all of a sudden other text messages show up, and oh, well, that victim was saying things not so kind, just as in a lot of group chats. They have a lot of group chats these days that tend to get them in trouble.
That makes sense. All right, thank you.
But the imbalance of power is usually one of the litmus tests on that investigation.
As far as our actual coding from the last 3 years, we are up on the actual bullying incidents. Just straight bullying coding would be 150. And then if it's broken down, that's not, I'm sorry.
We have 11 victims substantiated. How can we have 150 bullying incidents?
Not all bullying incidents have to be investigated. Not all bullying incidents have to be investigated. It can be very cut and dry and not have to be investigated.
Go back to the previous slide. These were just ones we had to investigate.
Right. Yes.
So then go to the slide we're on now. So that
Which
means
is 125.
There were 139 that we said, yep, you're being bullied right off the bat.
No. Go back. There was 125 investigations.
Yeah, go to the next slide. But
And there's 150, so approximately 25. It still can be coded as a bullying incident because it was investigated.
But so 139 hit the check boxes with no investigation.
Right.
So how many kids were bullied in Goose Creek last year? I want a number without all these fancy slides. How many children in Goose Creek were bullied last year? 11, 150? What's the number?
139 minus 11.
I can pull those numbers.
Why don't we have it right now? Because that's what we're talking about. Where is it in this data?
Go back, Dr. Bollinger. When you look at the victims substantiated, there were 11 substantiated victims.
Okay.
And there are 18 bullies,
Okay.
you could say. However, in some situations, you can have more than one. Go to the next slide. Because in this situation, on the 8 that were hazing, or the 14 that were cyberbullying, or the 3 that were severe bullying, you could have multiple victims and multiple. So it's hard to determine.
This slide is incidences.
Right.
Okay. So
it's hard to put a label on how many students we want to label as a bully, because I can't say that you actually would call them a bully. It's a bullying incident. It's an incident of bullying, but to actually label a student a bully, that would be, I would say.
Was it an imbalance of power, like the term says? And if it was, then it is what it is. I'm curious. Because now everybody's confused about what bullying is here now.
Well, no, because again, it's what these ladies and gentlemen up here investigate, and it just depends on the circumstance. You would have to.
Ms. Smith, you're saying, in one hand, you're saying, okay, well, it was a bullying incident.
They coded it as bullying.
I don't want to label the kid a bully.
It was coding bullying. It doesn't mean that the kid was labeled a bully. It means that it was coded in the system as a bullying incident by the administrator. It does not mean that it justified bullying.
So, if I'm hearing correctly,
yes.
If there's a bullying investigation, even if it's unsubstantiated, it could be coded bullying in the system. So that could be part of the 150.
Yes.
That doesn't mean there were 150 bullying incidents.
No. There were 150 coded, but again, technically, with the 125 investigations, there should be 125 incidents coded. So there was an additional 25 coded that didn't warrant a investigation. There were 8 coded as hazing, 14 as cyber, and 3 as severe. And they could fall into the investigation as well. But
So
every investigation is still going to be.
So if you code those 125 as bullying, then that's bullying, right? No?
No, if you do an investigation, you have to code it in the system, because we have to justify it for
to
being.
show that you investigated the bullying.
Exactly.
It was basically an intake of a claim.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
So actually, as Dr. O'Brien stated, the 125, and then the 150, and then the other.
Yes. And then it ended up 11 substantiated.
As far as victims, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. 11 substantiated victims. Yes. In the whole school district.
As far as an investigation goes, it does not mean that it was not, there were not other incidences. But as far as an investigation goes, yes. But again, not all incidences are investigated.
And give me an example why we wouldn't investigate somebody that claims there's a bullying going on. Like say some kids come up and they go, hey, Miss Smith, they're bullying me. And why wouldn't we investigate that? That doesn't.
No, that would warrant an investigation, but if something happens in a hallway and I'll just say that somebody walks up and punches another student in the stomach or pulls them down by their backpack, and come to find out, you get them in the office and, this has gone on more than one time, but the kid was too scared to report it.
Right.
There's no investigation needed. You've got it on video. You've got a witness of a teacher. You've got, this has happened. And then, so there's not really a need for investigation at that point because you have, like you said, proof. Because it wasn't a fight, as you said. It was actually.
It is. Just one person got pulled down or punched. That's
But
still a
it goes back-
fight, but it's one person is not just, gets beat up. It's just getting beat up.
But I would say that if let's say if one kid walks up to another kid and hits him from behind, knocks him out, we don't code that as bullying. That'd be coded as assault. And so there's different levels of discipline on the discipline matrix. And so I think a lot of times we group things under bullying.
Can it be both? You can assault me and still be a bully. A bullies assault people all the time. Like, they'll come up and hit you and assault you. Of course, that's assault, yes. But he's still a bully or she's still a bully. Just because you coded assault doesn't mean that wasn't a bullying case.
But we're going to code it.
I get it, assault.
Yeah, we're going to code it as an assault because that's the more severe,
Well, see,
especially if the
that's
police
where
are
we're
involved.
dropping the ball because it's still a bullying case. Even though you coded assault, it could be a bullying case.
But that could go into an actual investigation. We just coded it as an assault, but you still did a bullying investigation for it.
Would
it's
it
just
not-
coded something differently.
Yes, investigation, I get it. But this is an actual bullying case where somebody got punched. It's not investigation no more. It's actual bullying. And see, in my opinion, this bully assaulted this person. So, that's a bullying assault, if you ask me, not an investigation.
But PEMS won't let us code it that.
Okay.
So therefore, it gets coded as the P28, which is assault of the student, because hopefully the DA has taken charges at that point, and so now they're going to go to DAEP for assault or worse.
So theoretically, bullying cases are being coded at a higher thing, such as assault or
Depending
whatever,
on
and they're not
what-
showing in this.
Not necessarily in this, because depending on, again, the severity of the situation.
So, here's the question. How many assault cases do we have here? How come we're not seeing that? That way we know that a lot of those assaults, we understand you coded them assault, but it was an actual bullying case. So why don't we see those assaults? How many assaults do we have in the school district this year? Can y'all get us those numbers? I mean, that's something that would be more transparent for us to know that other things are going on with taking care of the bullying, but it's just classified as assault, you see? But we don't know. Like right now, if you wouldn't have said that, and y'all both said that y'all, classified as assault, well, I wouldn't have known that something happened like that, but it's a form of bullying to me. But we should be able to see the assaults if you're going to present to us and tell us, hey, look, these are assault cases. There was 100 assault cases, but we couldn't classify them as bullying, but this is what happened. So we know exactly what's happened.
So I would respond to that we have several PEMS codes and carries over this, but that are violent in nature that we can pull. We can provide that to the board in a board update, and that'll give you a picture of more of a discipline matrix because the committee is mainly focused on anti-bullying strategies and measures. But if you want that discipline data, I think that's something that Ms. Smith can easily pull.
Yeah.
The only data I pull for this is what we have investigated and what we have coded as bullying.
Right.
Obviously, it can fall under other
But if
purviews,
you're, again, Matt, I hear you, and I hear you, Randy, but if they're assaulting somebody, right, and you're not coding it as a bullying, you're coding it as assault, right? And even if it is discipline, I mean, it would behoove you to let us know that it ain't, we just don't have 11, cases of bullying, and we don't have 125 investigated cases or whatever semantics you want to use. But you put up, we had this many assaults, and they were taken care of. See, this is the whole purpose of knowing about bullying, is so know that our kids are, like Dr. Reminick said, are being taken care of. And if those assaults are coming up, well, we look at it and say, oh, okay, y'all took care of that, then it's good to go.
We'll
We
pull
keep
that data.
seeing, we've investigated 125 or 150 cases, and only 11 of them were, claimed bullying, but that don't make sense to me. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't know what really happened. So.
I know a case, it's not in our district, of a kid having someone bringing them something every day from Starbucks and continually have them do this, not because they're friends, because they're bullying them.
Exactly.
And that's a case that I told them, you don't need friends like that if you need to bring them something every day. But in some of the instances where you're talking about fighting, a kid hitting somebody, I can understand the assault part. Because now you put your hands on me.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different story. But if you are having to bring something for me every day, then you are bullying me. Right. And that's how I see bullying. I don't know if everybody else categorizes it like that, but that's bullying to me. But when you put your hands on me, that's an assault. I don't have to go old school on y'all, but
Well, you got the whole part.
Yeah.
But anyway, but they could be lunches. They could be taking their lunches. They could be taking their lunch money. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but when you say investigated, there's only 11 cases, but the assaults are there, I guess. I mean, all of them are classified as bullying, if you ask me. Whether they're taking your money, whether they slap you in the face or push you, that's bullying. It's bullying. I mean, physical, anything physical like that?
That's more of an assault than bullying. Because if it's just a reaction.
But if I come and hit you.
If it's just a reaction, yeah, then that's a fight.
But it's bullying.
But that's not bullying.
Because, I mean.
Well, if you're not, this is your first time, I walk up to you and slap.
She said elementary kids are scared to say anything.
Well, but elementary kids.
Okay, but it goes all the way up the chain.
Well, just for clarification, Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code provides the people conducting the investigations the outline for how to qualify something one way or the other.
Right.
And I don't remember, there's 13 elements that a child can be charged with, or maybe there's more than that. But Chapter 37 is what defines that, and that's what they're trained on, and that's what they know to go to identify it as this or that. Whether we're talking about many other things, drug paraphernalia and or weaponry, and all those things are classified by Chapter 37. So they have the training, they have the information in front of them, but what you're asking for tonight is a little bit different than what was presented. What was designed to be presented was just the anti-bullying efforts that we put forth in Goose Creek. That is a discipline report that you're asking for. And you could take that discipline report and line it up with this and see if there's a correlation. Absolutely. And we'll be glad to provide that to you.
And that's why we're here.
Yep.
This is why we're here, and this is my whole point. If we converse about this, and we're all talking about the same thing, which is what? The safety of our students, right? So what he considers bullying, I consider something else bullying, And, I get it. I get that. And whatever Chapter 37 says, that's another thing. I'm just saying, bullying is bullying. Bullying is bullying. Whether they're taking your lunch money, whether they're talking bad to you. I've never heard of social bullying before. Just because you leave me out, that's bullying now? You see, that's something new. But it's all about conversation and communication. See, when they left me out, I was kind of happy. I mean, they leave me out on trustees all the time, but, I'm good with that. I don't consider that bullying. I'm just saying, it's part of social interaction.
Do we have any other questions?
We have another slide.
Oh, you have another slide. Okay, please go forward.
Just don't assault me, because it ain't gonna be like that.
But I think that goes back to, and I'll I'll circle back to your point.
Mhm.
You just said exactly why it would not substantiate bullying. Just because you're left out of a text message doesn't constitute and
Well,
label
that
it
was
as
social. I was
substantiated.
being specific, though.
No. But that's something that they have to investigate. And I know they're both shaking their head because that's an investigation. Your victim is not going to be substantiated because they got left out of the text
I didn't even know
message.
that was. I didn't say that was.
No, I know, but that truly is, believe it or
Right.
not, a situation that
Right.
they've had to investigate. So therefore, it's not substantiated
You're
because
right. I get it.
there's a difference in being rude and mean and being a bully.
Well, okay. I would just tell you this, all you guys that are presenting today, even Randy, because he likes to interject every now and then. But here's the deal. If somebody comes and messes with your kid, whether it's physical, whatever they do to them, you're going to think that's bullying because they're messing with your kid. And you all need to think about that when you get these reports. They're messing with somebody's kid, whether they're cursing them out, slapping them, hitting them, punching them, pulling them, their backpack down. Those kids, and they don't want to report it. But it is, whether they're on the bus, okay? You go on a bus. You ever rode on the bus? In the hood, you'll see what bullying is all about. I'm telling you right now. You might have 3 or 4 fights on the way home.
So to address that point, at the campus level, just because we don't substantiate it, we still address it. We address every single thing that's brought to us, whether it's punitive, whether it's the counselor, whether it's social groups, reaching out to the parents for resources. So just because the numbers say that it's unsubstantiated, that doesn't mean at the campus level those kids are not still getting consequences.
And Carrie kind of mentioned it too, that, some of the parents and the kids, they don't want nobody to know that they're being bullied, and they won't tell you. We had a lady come over here this year and said that her daughter was being bullied, and, a lot, and nothing was ever done. Okay, I mean, I'm just telling you, when they tell you that, you got to take it for what they say, and that's their kid, So if it was your kid, you would do the same thing. Hold up, you're messing with my kid. That's my daughter. That's my son, especially if it's your own, So just food for thought.
All right. So on the district-wide committee, we wanted to talk take a little bit of a minute to talk about the accomplishments and also the challenges. I do want to thank Dr. Blanson and also Ms. Anawan for presenting with us because they're part of our committee. We had all principals on the committee this year as well as one parent per feeder pattern. We had 2 board representatives. I want to thank Ms. Guy and also Mr. Campisi for serving on that committee. The model was that we met once a quarter and we looked at some research, we looked at the data, and we provided strategies for the campuses to go back and use with their campus committee. And so we know that the campus committee is in the trenches doing the work. They're addressing the specific concerns that they see at their school. So Ms. Anawan at Crockett sees exactly what's happening at her school. She has a committee that's addressing those concerns. And so the goal of the district-wide committee was to do a trainer-of-trainer model. So I also want to thank Dr. Conklin and Ms. David because they provided some strategies and some PD during those meetings. Also, the meetings created a safe space, and so out of the 4 meetings, we brought in a group of students 2 times to provide input, discussion, dialogue. We had a large group of students. I would say 50 or 60 students per group, around that number. Also, we use that spring survey data for students to discuss what's working for them and what's not working for them. And the thing that I felt like went really well, and I think we all could agree on this, is that whenever the students were in the committee meeting, we let the students lead the discussion through Socratic seminar, and the adults oftentimes would just listen and hear the student voice, and that provided perspective as well. But maybe we should have some student reps next time to share some insight as well.
The students do not hold back.
They don't.
Hey, I'll tell you this. So when Kim first started, Ms. Kostek, and I give her props for starting this when she was on the committee and it first started, I remember it was discussion like this that has helped us progress, okay? There was, I think, one meeting, it was 3 bullying, substantiated bullying, like you want to call it, okay? And we're like, what? In the whole district? Next thing you know, we were discussing it more, and then we got recognized by the state for doing stuff, with the bullying committee, like trying to build it, trying to make it progress, trying to help these kids. And GCC CISD was recognized by the state, okay? We haven't been recognized since then, but we're progressing. We're moving forward. And a lot of these things have come about because of the initial discussion with concerns about the bullying committee or kids being bullied. See, so we're here, and I know y'all hearing this, and this ain't gonna be the last time, because we're gonna hear about it again, because we're gonna press it again, you know. Because honestly, we're all here because we're concerned about when we hear stories, because we get calls, you know, that, hey, my daughter was bullied, they don't want to do nothing, and then they fight back, and then they're both in trouble. You see, they didn't do nothing, so my daughter or my son had to defend themselves. You know, as a parent, I always tell my sons, you know what, don't ever start none. But if they mess with you, you finish it. You see, that's the kind of parents they give advice. They don't want them to engage in that kind of behavior. But if we don't do nothing about it, then they have to protect themselves. You know, so it won't be the last discussion. It was a good discussion. We brought out some of the things that needed to be brought out. You know, again, we disagree. You know, about what he thinks bullying is and what I think bullying is. You know, but we come from different cultures, different backgrounds, and that's the way it is when you bring us all together. And you got people, and that's why you have all these incidents with culture, with language. And, you know, when I was in the military, it was the same way. People from New York come together. People from Texas come together. People from California come together. And then you have a whole different ballgame when you're together. So just wanted to say, you know, that there's concern from everybody. And, you know, we're not always going to agree on everything.
All right.
But, you know, it's all for the concern of the kids, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Renteria.
Dr. Bollinger?
Thank you.
Still got
One more piece is just, I think it's important to note also that we have challenges listed up here, and I think bullying is not a specifically a Goose Creek problem. It's a state issue and it's a national issue, and that's for several reasons. I think that one conversation that we've had as a committee is, you know, when we grew up as kids, some of us are a little bit older than others, but I know when I grew up, you know, it was we didn't have the opportunity to humiliate or embarrass someone at the click of a button with immediate access. And so the fact that that's the world that our kids live in is it's much more prevalent because of that. And while social media connects us, it also tends to amplify divisive rhetoric, and the algorithms run where it creates division and it creates sensational divide, and so that leads to hostility. Another challenge is we want to make sure that regardless of campus turnover, maybe with teachers or with campus or district administration, we want to make sure we continue to sustain the strategies that are moving the needle towards creating a positive climate. Another issue that we're dealing with, if you look at the last bullet point, is combating societal norms. We live in a day and age where there tends to be a lot of polarization, a lot of division, lack of civil discourse. And when that's the case, even with adults not being able to model civility, then what that does is that makes us we need to be more intentional in treating each other with kindness and with empathy and with understanding. And so that's really the culture that we're working on building at our schools. And sometimes that's an uphill battle with even at the global scale with some of the hostility that's present. And so we want to make sure that regardless of what our kids may see or what the environment is, you know, depending on the day and age, that we're building that positive culture. And that's a challenge, but as a committee and as a district, we're committed to that. Our last slide here is, I'm sure you're happy to hear, is that we'll continue with our monthly campus meetings. And so we're a strong believer that our campus committees have teachers, they have students, they have parents on those school committees that meet once a month to address campus concerns and build strategies. And so we'll continue that. And then at the district level, we'll meet twice in the fall, twice in the spring to model those strategies, to share insights, to share updated data so that we can continue to move forward in the process. I know that, and I'd like to hear from Ms. Guy and Mr. Campese too. I mean, you guys participated in every single meeting, and so we appreciate your attendance, and so hopefully you saw some of the benefits as well. And so that's our focus moving forward. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Can I just make a couple of quick comments? Sure. First and foremost, the students coming into the committee and spending time with us, that was very valuable input. I think Ms. Guy would agree that, the students, they don't hold back anything. What they may be afraid to say in the school, they are not afraid to say in that room, and they were very open and honest, and that was good information. But I also want to end with a challenge or a request. We spent a lot of time in one of the meetings, and we talked about everything in that meeting that we did here, and it had to do with the numbers and the way they're presented and the way, and I learned something too, that if something is coded, would be coded as bullying, but it went to a higher offense, it kind of fell off the data that comes to us. While the data that y'all present in the format you did is very easy for y'all to understand because y'all deal with it on a regular basis, it took me a little bit of time to get a hold of it in the committees. My colleagues on the stage today, the same thing. It's not very easy to grasp and get a full picture of that. I think it'd be very helpful to break it down for the general public that would understand these numbers better without the 30-minute lesson that we're still somewhat confused on a little bit. I've got to get a hold on it, but like you said, I went to every committee meeting, and I hope to continue that. It's not something you just jump right into and know exactly what's going on. It takes a little bit to get your feet wet. But even if it's just an info slide or something like that, that really breaks it down. And if we have 150 some odd cases, and some of them are bullying, but they were coded at a higher charge or whatever, I think that's worth noting that we need to put that out there. That it was bullying, but it was actually coded at something higher than that. I think we need to be very transparent and open about bullying. The numbers as they're presented, and I've heard this, I think I heard it from students in the room, and then I hear it in the community all the time, and that's why report it, because nothing happens. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying that's a perception and a challenge that we need to overcome out there in the public. I commend y'all for what you're doing, but I'm the kind of guy, no matter how much you're doing, I want to see us do more. And I challenge myself to do that on this stage every day as well. So I just like to see a better, not a better format, but a different format. I'm not saying abandon what you're doing, but let's make it easy for anyone that walks in for the first time that's looking at it, because when we have parents and students come and they're like, my child's bullying, now it matters to them. And the first thing they see is 150 reports and only a few were dealt with, and it's a perception thing. I don't think that's a genuine issue. I think it's a perception. So that'd be my request, if we can kind of make it more easily palatable for the general public. I wasn't going to say that.
Thank you all. Okay, now we are down to consent agenda items. Dr. O'Brien?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, we have brought before the board this evening action items, including item 7A. Number 1, audit engagement letter from Mays & Associates, PLLC, the district's independent auditors, to perform the district's annual financial audit for the 23-24 school year. Number 2, board policy CDA local, other revenues and investments. Number 3, resolution for the school district's approved sources of instruction relating to investment responsibilities. Number 4, list of qualified broker-dealers, financial institutions for 24-25. Number 5, memorandum of understanding, interlocal agreement between Goose Creek CISD and Harris County for community youth services, KISE. A, 2 KISE workers specialists and 8 KISE specialists. 1 funded M&O, 1 funded title. Number 6, changing board policy for TDL, temporary disability leave, to align with Texas Education Code 21.409. Number 7, request for proposal, RFP, for beverage and vending services. Number 8, second option to extend request for proposal, RFP, for food service management services and delegations of authority to the superintendent to finalize all renewal documents required by the Texas Department of Agriculture. And number 9, tax refunds. Administration brings these consent agenda items for the board for consideration, and we recommend approval.
Okay, is there anything that needs to be pulled for separate consideration?
I have questions about number 5 and a comment about number 7. My comment about number 7 is I'm tired of never finding Coke Zero in the vending machine. It's always sold out. But I do have questions on number 5.
Okay.
So who's our expert on KICE? Dum, 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 dum. Okay, well, give it your best shot. Kevin, jump right in. I understand the 8 from title funds are checking a box that we're providing services to special kids that need it. Do those, let's go with 10 since we're doing 8 plus 2. Are they for specific campuses or do they travel throughout the district? Okay, so we have 10 campuses that have that need, but only enough federal funds or title funds for 8. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you over the cough.
Okay, so the ones that are 8,
Uh-huh.
those are all grant funded,
Uh-huh.
but the ones that are in 199, if I'm right, Bridget, are also meeting the title funds that we have to spend.
Okay, so they're checking that box too. So we're doing a grant and then we're doing title requirements. Yes. Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Good, I might not have it.
Mm-hmm.
You got Coke Zero?
No, but absentee.
Somebody hooked us up tonight. I'm happy.
Okay. Anything needs to be pulled for separate consideration? No? Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented then.
And I will second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Campisi. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Have 6 for, 0 against. Motion passes. And so we are on to future board agenda items, board training, and board meetings. Is there anything that, any future board agenda items? I know we have some kind of...
A couple that we're still making up from the last request.
Right.
That we'll get this summer.
Special Olympics.
I believe that was on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Through our bullying discussion, I was reading a little bit through FFI Local, which is our freedom from bullying policy. And it sounds like there's more to what they're doing than what's in our policy.
That is correct.
Maybe we need to take a look at that policy and make sure it's specific to Goose Creek and our expectations and not just update 121 or whatever it was. So maybe a review of FFI Local.
I just, off the top of my head, I remember the mandate was 1 meeting per year. So we're doing 4 meetings per year at the district level and then every month at the campus level.
Since we're not all going to be here perpetually, putting it in policy might be a good idea for Goose Creek.
Got it.
Anything else for future agenda items? Okay, board trainings. I know we have SLI coming up in San Antonio next week. Okay. 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 Perfect. Oh, good. Good, good, good. And then our next regular board meeting is June 17th. Okay. All right. Then we will move into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed meeting, and we'll adjourn at 8:18. 10:37. And the first one is to consider and take possible action regarding approval of board evaluation, board commitments, and related actions.
And Ms. Guy, I move that the board approve the board's evaluation as discussed in executive session.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mrs. Barat-Tins. Any questions or discussion?
No, just I'm gonna vote for it, and I just want y'all to know that Constitution comes first. We've got First Amendment rights. Even though the board is, we're trying to do the right thing for the board. Still got the Constitution that supersedes anything that we do. But altogether, I'm for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 6-4, 0 against. Motion passes. I would also like to make a motion to that the board approve the board's commitments as discussed in executive session, and I'll read them out. It says, in addition to any and all duties and responsibilities in our adopted board policies and procedures and any goals established by the board, we, the Board of Trustees of the Goose Creek Consolidated Independent School District, do hereby make the following additional ongoing commitments. Board members will champion and engage in a supportive relationship with the superintendent, district administration, and the entire Goose Creek CISD community with a focus on achieving our district goals on behalf of all of our students. Board members will devote the time necessary to be an effective board member, including preparing for and participating in board meetings by, amongst other things, accessing, reviewing, and using board book to prepare for and participate in board meetings, as well as attending requested and required board trainings. Board members will make every effort to reasonably listen to and consider all sides and related information of an issue, especially a controversial issue, prior to making a board decision. Board members will exercise and maintain professional communications amongst board members, including when disagreement exists, and board members will refrain from personal attacks and use of profanity towards others on the board. Board members will keep a growth mindset and will continue to evaluate our board effectiveness on a yearly basis.
I second the motion.
I have a motion by Ms. Guy, a second by Mr. Clem. Any other discussion or questions?
Yes. I will support Randy as long as he behaves. And then the second thing is, yeah, we're good. I just,
okay.
Board is good.
Any other questions? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 6-4, 0 against. Motion passes. Okay, I think we are on to personnel.
Yes, Madam President, F, consideration of personnel. Administration recommends the board approve the elections and accept the resignations and retirements as presented. Items 1 and 2.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Campisi, a second by Mrs. Barat-Tins. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 6-4, 0 against. Motion passes.
And administration only has one administrative election this evening, and it is the speech language pathologist, recommending Jennifer Garcia.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Barat-Tins, a second by Mr. Campisi. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We have 6-4, 0 against. Motion passes. And then, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
6-0.
Meeting adjourned at 10:42.